Hello everyone, and welcome to my 8th tutorial on how to create full-stack web applications. In my previous tutorial, I covered the finalization of a RESTful endpoint, and in this tutorial I'm going to be focusing on laying the foundation for the client side of our application by integrating an AngularJS framework called Ng Boilerplate. Now, Ng Boilerplate is a project structure for starting up your AngularJS project, which includes a Grunt file, which is basically a configuration of your Grunt build system, and Bower. Now, Grunt is a task manager, and you can basically compare it to Ant in the Java landscape. And Bower is a project package manager, and you can pretty much compare Bower to something like Maven in the Java landscape. Now, these two things taken together are configured in our Ng Boilerplate project, and will make beginning our developing our AngularJS project much easier. So I'm going to be now downloading Ng Boilerplate, but in order to do that, we're going to have to install Grunt and Bower. Now, Grunt and Bower both run on a platform called Nodejs. So Node.js is a platform for developing applications, and many times it's being used for developing server-side applications. However, it can also be used to develop client-side applications, and that's the case with Grunt and Bower. So in order to download Grunt and Bower, we'll need to first download Node.js. So you'll want to go over to Google and search Node.js, and you'll want to click on this link here, and you'll want to install Node.js. Now, installing Node.js will install the Node package manager, which is what you'll use to install both Grunt and Bower. So once you install Node and you have the Node package manager installed, you'll want to execute this command on the command line. However, before you start executing commands on the command line, you'll want to make sure you're running your command prompt in administrator mode, because there can be subtle bugs caused by not doing this. So in order to run in administrator mode, right-click on your command prompt and click Run as Administrator. Now, once you run as administrator, this should fix some of the more subtle bugs in installing Grunt and Bower. So go ahead and install the Grunt command line interface using this command, and also install Bower. So this will allow us to use Bower and Grunt on the command line. Now, the next step would be downloading Ng Boilerplate. So you'll want to search Google for Ng Boilerplate, and then you'll want to click this link over here. Now, this is what the project structure looks like for Ng Boilerplate. You have a source directory containing the source for your JavaScript source files, and you also have a Grunt file, which configures the tasks for your project using Grunt, and also a Bower file to download your JavaScript dependencies for your web project. So in order to download this, you'll want to and configure it, you'll want to follow these instructions. However, instead of using this clone URL that they're using, you'll probably want to use this particular clone URL over here, because I think it might be more recent. So go ahead and copy this URL and go to your project folder. So I'm going to go to C users / Chris / tutorials / basic web app, and I go to, so this is our project folder. I'm going to go to source, and then I'm going to go to main, and then I'm going to go to web app. Now I'm going to place the Ng Boilerplate into our web app directory, because web app is being published by our Tomcat as static resource. Well, we can select a folder inside this web app directory and publish it as static resources, and have our JavaScript files be updated in real time. So I'm going to download NGBP. So I'm going to type git clone and then paste in the URL. And I'm going to clone it to a directory called app. So I'm going to type app at the end here. And so this will download it from the repository. And now we have an app directory over here. So in order to actually, so let me just show you real quickly what that directory looks like. So inside the app directory, we have a grunt build file. Now the grunt build file references a number of different tasks. So these are tasks that other people have built, and each of them have a website defining the different configuration options for them. For example, the grunt contrib copy task has a website, and that defines the different parameters for that task. And in order to, so this is basically amounts to downloading or linking to the definitions for these tasks. And in order to actually use the tasks in the grunt file, we define a task config JSON object, which contains different configurations for these tasks. So for example, if I scroll down, you'll see, I'll show you an example of a simple task. So we have a copy task over here, and each copy task has a number of subtasks, and each subtask contains different parameters for specifying what to copy and where to copy it. So this is explained more thoroughly. The different parameters are explained more thoroughly for the website for the copy task. But this is an example of a simple task, and you can basically look at the different websites for them and basically get a basic idea of what's going on in the project. So basically, the project is performing Grunt is performing different tasks in sequence to achieve a particular goal, and that is to minify your different JavaScript files, to build your project, and also try to pack your JavaScript into as few files as possible. For example, when developing AngularJS, we'll have a number of different view templates, and in order to minify that, this Grunt will actually put all the views into a single file that will make it so that the browser only has to download that one file to get all the views. And the HTTP standard, I think, has something like you can download something like 4 files asynchronously at a time. So by minifying and reducing the amount of files, you greatly increase the speed at which a end user can download your web page. So so Grunt helps with all those things, but basically at the very end of this long configuration object, if you go to the bottom here, here is where the configuration object ends. You can see that we initialize Grunt with that task config task in this init grunt function. So this initializes the Grunt build system with our different tasks, and then we also name a task called watch here, which will perform a number of different tasks in sequence: the build task, the karma unit task, and the delta task, which will watch for code changes and update our browser in real time. So basically, in order to actually get started, so that explains the Grunt part of this application. Now, the project also has a package.json folder, which helps download the different Grunt dependencies that we have. So this is using the Node package manager to download Grunt dependencies. And so we have a bunch of Grunt dependencies here. Now, in order to actually have Node package manager install these, we're going to go to the app directory and type npm install. So I'm going to cd to the app directory, and I'm going to type npm install. And this will download these different dependencies to the Node modules package. So this is particular to configuring Grunt. However, in order to manage the dependencies, the JavaScript dependencies such as Bootstrap and AngularJS, we're going to be using Bower, which is a different package manager, but is used more for managing front-end JavaScript frameworks. I mean, it's Bower's more used for client-side dependencies, basically. So this is going to download our Node dependencies here. If we give it a second. Okay, so now our node dependencies are downloaded to the node modules directory, and you can see the different folders for the different Grunt modules. Now, in order to there's a .bow errc file here, which configures a couple of properties for Bower. It configures a directory to download the Bower dependencies to, and also a configuration file for Bower called bower.json. So when we run Bower on the command line, it will look for the .bow errc file to find these different parameters, and it will also read the bower.json file, which contains a number of different client-side dependencies for our application. So in order to actually have Bower install these, I'm going to go to our command line here. I'm going to type Bower. I'm going to type Bower install here. So this should download the different client-side dependencies for our application. If we just give it a second here. So anyway, we're basically running all these, except we have just changed a URL in our project to point to the newer URL. Now, if I go back to here, if we go back, all right. So let's see what happened. All right, so here we type in, we typed. All right, here we go. Okay, so this is the window. All right, so it downloaded these different files for us, the Angular files, Bootstrap files, etc., and download them to the vendor directory here. So now we can access these files, and in fact, some of these files are already being accessed. If, for example, if you go into the build.config.js, which is used to configure different build properties for our Grunt file, and you scroll to the bottom here, you can see that our project is already including a number of the different dependencies in that folder. So basically, this is Ng Boilerplate, some standard configuration for configuring your project, and basically you can add to this to add different dependencies you might need in your application, and Bower, and Grunt will automatically add these dependencies to your main JavaScript file. And you can see that by clicking on the source directory here and clicking on index.html. If you scroll down, you can see that there's going to be so index.html is our main JavaScript file, and if you okay, over here, you can see compiled JavaScript tag here, and it links to there's this tag here for reference which loops through a number of different files, and for each file it prints out a JavaScript link to that file. So this is Grunt's way of adding the different dependencies in your project automatically. And so basically this is we're going to be able to add our dependencies and not really have to modify our main index.html too much. Basically, we'll modify certain basic things on it, but for the most part, we're going to be modifying files in our app directory, which will contain our different AngularJS modules, and also the main module, which will be Ng Boilerplate. So basically, we'll be developing those in the next tutorial, but we'll be developing our modules in the next tutorial. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to show you guys how to get your application and Ng Boilerplate set up. So in order to actually start up our AngularJS application, which is basically Ng Boilerplate is an already running AngularJS application, and we'd like to actually start running it through our server so that we can have a development process set up. So in order to actually start up our project, I'm going to go to our MVC dispatcher servlet here, and I'm going to specify a place to serve static resources. So I'm going to specify a MVC resource tag here, and I'm going to specify a location of /app/ so this will reference all URLs at the base URL /app and then anything else, and we're going to make this point to the /app/build directory. So /build is where we're going to store where the JavaScript application is going to be built by Grunt. So in order to actually start the Grunt build process, we're going to go over to our command prompt here, and you're going to type grunt watch. So what this is going to do is it's going to watch for changes to our JavaScript source files and rebuild the application every time there's a change. So it's going to start Karma, which is a testing framework for JavaScript, but we're not going to be getting into that. But basically, this will start up the process. And so now there should be a build directory inside our app directory. You can see it here. And if I go ahead and run our application, we should be able to access the entry point for our AngularJS application here. So if we just give it a second here, it should start pretty soon. Oh, okay, so I already had a server running. Right, so let me just cancel this server and just start up again. Just take a second here. Okay, so the server started now, and now I can go ahead and go to localhost 8080/basic web app/app, and then you'll want to reference the index.html at the end. And if I go ahead and go there, you can see that our application starts up here. Now, basically, whenever I make a change to our source, our index, the system is automatically going to rebuild the project. So you can see I'm modifying the source directory, but by modifying the source directory, it's actually going to modify the build directory. So if we go ahead and change, for example, what is it, test. So if I save that, and I go back to our web page here, so if I search for what is it, so you can see that's the text that says what is it. Now if I go ahead and I refresh this page, you're going to see that the text I just added modified the page, so I didn't have to do anything. The grunt watch task detected the change to the JavaScript file and automatically recompiled our JavaScript program. So I'm going to just erase that for a second here. And also I want to demonstrate something called live reload. So if you go to the NGBP project and you search for live reload, they show you how to configure live reload for your project. So basically whenever you modify your JavaScript files, Grunt sends a message on a particular port that the files are changed, and there's a Chrome plug extension which will listen for that message and reload the refresh the page when that happens. So here you can download links for the different plugins. So I currently have the live reload plugin for Chrome downloaded. Now I don't have it enabled for our project, but if I click enable live reload here, now when I make changes to our JavaScript files in our project, you should automatically see the changes happen without me having to refresh the page. So if I change, for example, if I erase all this text here, let's see, I'll go to app and then home here, and then the home template file. Now if I erase, if I want to erase all this here, I can just erase this, and then I can save it. And you'll see that it automatically disappears. So this is live reload working for us. Now, if you make changes too fast, it might not detect it. For example, if I add some text here to them, let me see if I can demonstrate this. If I add test, it will update. But if I add test and then save and then test and then save again, it might. Well, yeah. Sometimes you need to be careful. I mean, I'm not sure if I can demonstrate this right now, but sometimes you need to be a little careful about making changes too fast, because sometimes it can't detect it. And if you're afraid you made changes too fast and it didn't detect your change, then you can just click the refresh button up here. So that basically explains the setup for Ng Boilerplate. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to be focusing on we're on actually developing some of the Angular, the client-side part of our application, the custom code for interfacing with our backend. Anyway, this is a very useful build system and should actually save you a lot of time in future for any other kinds of projects you make. Anyways, if you guys found this tutorial helpful, like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.